Chris Denari from the Indiana Pacers join us. Had media day this week, Chris. It's a busy week. Media days all over the place Monday for IU basketball and the Pacers as well. Got to see. It's just like for you, it was great for us to actually talk to players face to face for the first time in 2 years, and to make eye contact with them from even just 6 feet away or whatever. It makes a huge difference.
Oh, no question. For us on Monday, it was media day, as you said, which was great just to be there, be around the players. And then I've been at practice the last 2 days. So that's something that I haven't done since March of 2020. The Pacers had their first practice on Tuesday morning. And then the Pacers also had their foundation golf outing that day. So I was out at the golf course early to MC, went to practice, came back, MC'd the back end of it. And a number of the players came out, which was really good for the corporate partners and the sponsors and those people that support the Indiana Pacers. And then yesterday was day 2 of practice. They'll go again today. Unfortunately, I won't go down because at noon today, we have the next 2 days, we have NBA broadcast meetings via Zoom, 5.5 hours today, and I think 3 hours tomorrow. So it's something that in the past, we would go to New York City and all of us would meet for a couple of days. But this year we're going to do it, virtually. So, the next 2 days are important days for us from a broadcast standpoint as we get ready for the season. I anticipate that Rick Carlisle I think they'll take tomorrow off and then go back Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then their first preseason game is next Tuesday. So, it happens fast, but these guys are in really good shape. I've been very impressed. I said something yesterday to our basketball people, and I said, I wish people could actually see these practices, how hard they play, because, so many people who aren't, and I'm going to use the word, aren't educated about the NBA think, these guys don't play any defense, and they don't play hard. I'm telling you what, if you would have watched the last 2 days of practice, you would absolutely change your mind. And so, it's been good to be there. But a lot of the guys came in about 2 weeks ago. And in fact, the week prior, last week, the entire team was in on their own. And they played every day, went out to dinner. So I think those things are the important things that you're trying to do also with what's happening on the floor.
I think to your point about the no playing defense, everybody looks at, if you're a casual fan or whatever, you just look at the final score, 122, 124. These guys are in the league for a reason. They can shoot the ball. They know how to get to the basket. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when I hear people say there's no defense in the NBA. And I'm like, here's a ticket to a courtside game. See how hard they're actually playing. But because of the way the media days falls, it's in the thick of the Big Ten season. I didn't get to watch or hear as much, so I kind of got the Cliff Notes version. But one thing we talked about, Chris, in the past has been this team needing a leader. And I thought it was good to hear Malcolm Brogdon say, we need a leader, and that's going to be me. So for somebody to take on that leadership role, for somebody to embrace it, I think when you look at the Pacers and how they've struggled in the playoffs, how they had their ups and downs a season ago, to have somebody step up into a leadership role, even as early as media day, I think what is a really good sign for this franchise heading into what we think could be a really good year.
Yeah, Dustin, I think that's important. 2 years ago, his first season, he comes in, Victor Oladipo was here, and it was Victor Oladipo's team, if you will. And even though Victor was, coming back from injury, it's hard to come in and assert yourself as a newcomer when you've not been around a certain group. And then last year was just a bizarre year, right? It's a COVID year. You had a head coach that didn't last the year. They had all kinds of, just issues. And I think that manifested itself on the floor. And so, to a man, and especially starting with, Kevin Pritchard, they've sort of looked at last year and said, hey, that's a mulligan. We hit it out of bounds. We're re-teeing, and we need a restart and a refresh with a brand new coach. And so I think Malcolm has taken it upon himself to assert himself in a leadership role. He had a majority of the team join him in LA for about 3 or 4 days, where it was not only important to do things on the floor, it was doing things off the floor. It was going out to dinner. A bunch of them, I think in the last 2 weeks, they took the entire team, they went out to Topgolf. So it's just trying to do those things. The other thing that I was going to tell you guys that I really, really liked about practice was Rick Carlisle empowers his assistant coaches. They have voices. They are leading drills. Now, Rick will come in and, say something, and he's leading the charge. But Lloyd Pierce, Ronald Norad, the former Butler point guard, Mike Weiner, Jenny Busick, they're all leading drills. And so I think that's good because there are a lot of head coaches that want to do it all themselves. And I think, that might have been a problem last year. The assistants' voices weren't heard that much. And so that really hurt. That you're not going to have that issue this year. This is a very strong staff. Lloyd Pierce has been an NBA head coach in Atlanta. He was a #1 assistant in Philadelphia. So, again, it's early. I've just seen a couple of practices, but I've been very impressed with what I've watched.
Yeah, and what's something that jumped out at me is both Mike Woodson and Rick Carlisle are both coming in and setting a similar tone with their teams. Defense, very defensive-minded. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of similarities because both coached in the NBA for a long time and know the importance because across all sports, defense is what wins. Defense is what gets you to the winner's circle. So I just find there just seems to be a very similar tone between those two guys.
Well, Dustin made a good point. I mean, especially in the NBA, there are so many talented offensive players. And one of the reasons the scores, if you look at college basketball to the NBA, one reason the score is going to be higher, it's 48 minutes. You've got 8 extra minutes. That's almost another full quarter of play. And so you're right. I mean, I think both those coaches know they've got to be better defensively. Clearly, IU needs to be better defensively than what we've seen. And the Pacers need to get back to where they were 2 years ago when they were a top 5, top 6 defensive team. One of the most interesting things was on day 1 of practice, the first drill they did was free throw blockout. And what Rick was trying to tell his team was, look, we've got to take care of the little things. If we don't build on the little things, then everything else isn't going to matter. So it was that small detail of free throw blockout. The other thing I said, my dad passed away 4 years ago, was my high school coach, longtime coach, and loved defense. He would have loved watching a number of the drills that the Pacers were doing. And it reminded me of my high school days and even my college days at Wabash, where the coach has the basketball, there's 10 guys in the lane and they're circling, right? One group's going to be offense, one group's going to be defense. And the ball goes, guy has to sprint to the baseline and it's 5-on-4 and the guy has to get back, so they can play 5-on-5. Those are old school drills. I mean, old school defensive drills that really are cool to watch.
One of the things, too, that I thought, the past year or so, maybe even extending a little further, has been, the mystery wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a riddle of playing Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner. Do you not play them together? And I thought Rick Carlisle's answer to that was pretty interesting. He says that he thought that there were ways that they could stagger them. There's ways they could play at the same time. So really you're getting the best out of both guys. Do you have any sense of, and maybe this isn't a practice thing and maybe you got more information on it, but do you get a sense of how he's wanting to do that just right now at the early stages of this season?
Well, I think one of the ways you can do that is what he did in Dallas with Dirk Nowitzki back in the day, especially as Dirk got older. Dirk would start and Dirk would maybe play the first 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes. And at the 6-minute mark, Rick would make a substitution. Because if you remember, they would start the two bigs. They'd start like Dwight Powell, back in the day, Tyson Chandler with Dirk. And then they would make that first substitution and Dirk would go out. And then when Dirk would come back in, either at the start of the second quarter or whatever, he'd replace the center. And I think those are the things that you can be creative with how you manage them. Absolutely, do you want them to play together? But you also, are going to need to go small at times. Now, the Pacers, as people are watching and listening, have some injury issues. TJ Warren is out. We don't know when he'll be back. And then we got the news Karis LeVert is out with some type of back injury. They ironically, media day was Monday, and they did not I think the scan was in the afternoon. He had been having, I guess, some discomfort, but nothing that was super bothersome because he was still working out and playing 5-on-5. Well, that didn't come back until they went to dinner on Monday night. And so they've opted for a second opinion, and they'll just need to see what's up. But I think the good news is there is some depth there. I mean, moving in, Jeremy Lamb is healthy. Justin Holiday. I've been really impressed with Duarte and Isaiah Jackson. I mean, they've got Isaiah Jackson on the second team right now. So I think back to your point, Dustin, I think the way you manage those big guys is they're going to play together, but you can also stagger them. And Rick is very creative in how he manages his personnel. And so I think that's something that we'll look to see. And it will be, ever evolving. I think, in the next week, the two preseason games, who knows what you're going to see because you're going to play, the 17th and 18th guy because you want to give them some time. But we'll see as the season goes on.